welcome to this explainer. So, you want to own a combat sports company. You buy a ring, sign some fighters, and just watch the pay-per-view money roll in. Simple, right? Well, actually not exactly. Today, we're going to dive deep into the incredibly complex, high-risk, and high-reward business of combat sports. We're looking at what it really takes to build an empire of human drama.
Here's our agenda for today. First, the combat sports illusion. 2, the brutal cost of scaling. 3, inside UFC 306. 4, the fighter pay reality. 5, antitrust and legal threats. And finally, number 6, revenue engines and monopoly.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the combat sports illusion.
Picture a pristine, packed professional football stadium on one side and an empty combat sports arena on the other. There is a stark contrast between traditional sports and combat sports. When you look at traditional leagues like the NFL or the NBA, you see tangible assets. The league and the billionaire owners literally own the physical stadiums, they maintain 53-man salaried rosters, and players take home roughly half of every dollar generated through collective bargaining. But a combat sports promotion, it's a completely different beast. You don't permanently employ the fighters, they're independent contractors, you don't own the stadiums, what you actually own is totally intangible. Think about a gleaming gold championship belt, a brand, and a broadcast pipeline. You're essentially buying the right to package human competition into sellable entertainment.
Moving on to Section 2, the brutal costs of scaling.
Scaling a combat sports promotion requires some truly staggering capital just to survive. If you look at the financial dashboard of a basic regional promotion in year 1, you're looking at burning up to $350,000. That covers athletic commission licenses, medical staff, and basic venue rentals, generating almost zero media value. Step up to a mid-tier promotion by year 3, doing a few events a year with professional production and regional streaming, and you're burning up to $2 million a year. And you know what? You're probably still losing money. But to reach that national stage by year 5, to attract real television distribution and elite fighters, you need well north of $10 million in capital before you've even signed a single high-profile name or generated a single dollar of meaningful TV revenue.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer volume of hard costs for just a single event. Imagine a fast-paced broadcast control room at a massive live sports arena. To produce a baseline major pay-per-view, you need a mid-sized arena that runs up to $250,000. Broadcast trucks, lighting rigs, and camera crews add another $500,000. Add in state sanctioning fees, specialized insurance, drug testing protocols, mandatory ringside medical staff, security, travel. You are looking at roughly $2 million in fixed production costs. And remember, that's before a single fighter has even been paid a dime.
Which brings us to Section 3, inside UFC 306 at Sphere.
$20 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That was the jaw-dropping production cost for this single event at the spectacular Las Vegas Sphere, officially branded as Riyadh Season Noche UFC. To utilize that massive 16K resolution interior screen wrapping entirely around the arena, the UFC essentially doubled their production team and brought in Emmy-winning directors. They installed custom lighting setups, used AI computer vision to track advanced striking metrics in real time, and even integrated audio cues into the haptic seats, so fans could literally feel the impact of the fights. It was 10 times the standard cost of a major pay-per-view.
But here is the massive payoff. $22 million. That was the record-setting live gate revenue from a sold-out crowd of just over 16,000 people. This brilliantly illustrates how a top-tier promotion, backed by a massive brand, can essentially break even on a $20 million production bill using ticket sales alone, and that's before they even touch the global pay-per-view buys, merchandise sales, or the incredibly lucrative title sponsorship money.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit for Section 4, the fighter pay reality.
At the very core of a modern combat sports contract is the show and win model. So what is this exactly? It's a base guaranteed purse a fighter receives just for making weight and stepping into the cage, plus an additional matching amount that's awarded only if they get their hand raised. So a basic rookie contract might be 12 and 12, 12 grand to show and another 12 grand to win. As you can clearly see, this performance-based model differs drastically from the guaranteed, salaried contracts we see in traditional team sports.
And this brilliantly illustrates the vast financial extremes within the sport. Take a look here. On the left, we have an unranked rookie losing their debut.
They walk away with their $12,000 show money and a baseline $4,000 Venom promotional compliance payout, totaling $16,000 gross. Now look at the right. A champion winning by knockout rakes in a massive flat purse, a top-tier Venom payout, a $100,000 performance bonus, and pay-per-view points, clearing nearly $1.4 million. But here's the absolutely crucial point. Gross pay is not net pay. That rookie's $16,000 shrinks drastically. After they pay a 10% management fee, a 10% gym fee, out-of-pocket medical care, and independent contractor taxes, they might actually take home less than $10,000 for an 8-week training camp. It's a really tough reality.
Let's move into Section 5, Antitrust and Legal Threats.
Picture a tense legal arbitration room, stacks of financial documents everywhere, because the central issue here revolves around revenue splits. According to legal filings from the Leve versus Zuffa antitrust lawsuit, which was a class action brought by over 1,000 former UFC fighters, it was alleged that the UFC retained roughly 80% or more of all revenue generated by its events. The plaintiffs claimed fighters received around 20% or less and alleged that anti-competitive contracts artificially suppressed wages across the industry. Now, just for context, as we discussed earlier, players in traditional sports leagues collectively receive closer to 50% of all league revenue.
This complex legal battle actually led to a massive development. A $375 million settlement was reached in the Lee versus Zuffa lawsuit, specifically covering eligible fighters who competed between December 2010 and June 2017. However, it's really important to note that a second, related antitrust lawsuit called Johnson versus Zuffa, which covers fighters from 2017 to the present, remains completely active in the courts. For anyone operating a major combat sports company, these cases represent a massive, ongoing structural threat to the business model.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Revenue Engines and Monopolies.
I want to pose a question to you. What happens when your main event fighter gets hurt? Let's say you've already spent your $2 million on production. Then, your headliner suffers a devastating injury just 7 days before the fight. This scenario perfectly exposes the terrifying volatility of the traditional pay-per-view model. We saw this exact nightmare play out with UFC 303 in June 2024 when Conor McGregor withdrew. A card expected to do massive numbers ended up selling around 274,000 buys, with the replacement main event, leaving an estimated $29 million in net promotional revenue completely wiped out. You just can't run a stable mega corporation like that.
To survive that kind of wild volatility, you absolutely need a safety net. The goal is to convert volatile, event-by-event revenue into a guaranteed billion-dollar floor. This is exactly what happened when the UFC struck a monumental 7-year, $7.7 billion media rights deal with Paramount, starting in 2026. By shifting away from unpredictable pay-per-view spikes to a guaranteed streaming rights model, the promotion heavily insulates itself. Think about it like a constant, steady stream of digital revenue. $1 billion a year is contractually guaranteed, regardless of whether a huge star gets injured or a specific card completely underperforms.
Beyond just media rights, there's another massive revenue layer: lucrative sovereign site fees. Picture a luxury waterfront venue in Abu Dhabi at sunset. Foreign governments and tourism authorities will actually pay combat sports promotions immense, guaranteed upfront fees just to host events within their borders as a geopolitical tourism strategy. For example, Abu Dhabi pays an estimated $25 million per pay-per-view, and Saudi Arabia pays roughly $20 million per fight night. That means the promotion walks in with a guaranteed profit floor before a single ticket or broadcast right is even sold. That is a luxury that regional and mid-tier promotions simply cannot access.
When you put all of this together, it creates what we can call the monopoly engine. Let's see how this builds. Step 1. Secure billion-dollar media rights for a guaranteed financial floor. Step 2. Collect massive sovereign site fees to eliminate event risk entirely. Step 3. License your brand globally for merchandise, apparel, and video games, like the EA Sports UFC franchise, which generates massive royalty income with almost zero overhead. When you run these three engines simultaneously, you literally create a financial fortress. It gives you the capital to instantly sign any rising star from a smaller promotion, making it virtually impossible for competitors to scale up and challenge you.
So if you're looking at this industry, you have to realize one big thing. When you reach the absolute pinnacle of this business, you aren't really running a fight promotion anymore. The ultimate goal is to build a globally licensed, sovereign-backed distribution network for human drama. And the ones who own the distribution, well, they're the ones who ultimately win. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope this completely changes how you view the business side of things the next time you tune in to watch a fight. See you next time.